Hanging up, he turned back to me. Here's what's going to happen, Margaret. First, you're going to tell me what severance package they offered you. 3 months salary, standard NDA. Morrison snorted. Insulting. Did you sign? Yes, I admitted. This morning. Doesn't matter. The NDA is void if they materially misrepresented circumstances of your termination, which they did, by claiming you were underperforming while simultaneously using your work to secure ongoing contracts. My head was spinning. Mr. Morrison, I appreciate this, but... James, he corrected, and I'm not finished. I have a proposition for you. Just then, my phone buzzed. Alex's name appeared on the screen. I showed it to Morrison, who smiled grimly. Right on schedule. He's probably just discovered the system failures. Don't answer. My phone buzzed again, and again. Text messages started appearing. Margaret, we need to discuss the Anderson project. Call me ASAP. This is urgent. Keep ignoring him, Morrison advised, watching the messages appear. Now, about my proposition. Morrison Technologies needs a chief architecture officer, someone who understands enterprise systems, who can bridge the gap between legacy and innovation, someone with experience. I stared at him. Are you? Offering you a job? Yes, twice your current salary, full benefits, and a seat on our technical advisory board. But I'm too old, I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Morrison laughed. Margaret, I'm 63, my CTO is 59. We believe experience isn't just valuable, it's essential. You can't innovate effectively if you don't understand what you're improving upon. My phone was buzzing constantly now. Alex had moved from messages to emails, each marked urgent. What about Nexus? I asked. The non-compete is void, along with the NDA. Besides, Morrison's smile turned predatory. After today, Nexus Solutions will be lucky to keep their doors open. As if on cue, Jerry appeared at our table. Margaret, there's a young man at the counter insisting on speaking with you. Says he's your boss. I looked past Jerry. Alex Jensen stood at the counter, his perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled, his designer shirt wrinkled. When he spotted me, he started forward, then froze as he recognized my companion. Mr. Morrison, he stammered. I've been trying to reach you. Mr. Jensen. Morrison's voice could have frozen lava. Perfect timing. We need to discuss the Anderson project. Specifically, your email claiming credit for architecture you didn't design. Alex paled. There seems to be some confusion. The only confusion, Morrison stood, his imposing height forcing Alex to look up, is why you thought firing the actual architect and lying about it was a good business decision. Alex's eyes darted between us. Margaret, there's been a mistake. We'd like to offer you your job back, with a raise. I looked at my phone, now displaying 47 missed calls and messages, at my polyester uniform that smelled like coffee and French fries, at James Morrison, who was watching me with quiet confidence. No thank you, I said calmly. I've accepted another position. But, the Anderson project, the systems are failing. Blake can't. Not my problem anymore, I replied, feeling lighter than I had all day. I'm too old for that industry, remember? What happened next unfolded like a perfectly executed program. Morrison Technologies immediately terminated their contract with Nexus Solutions, citing fraudulent representation and technical incompetence. When word got out that I was joining Morrison as Chief Architecture Officer, 3 other major clients followed suit. The next morning, as I cleared out my locker at Jerry's diner, the headlines in the tech blogs were vicious. Nexus Solutions faces client exodus after age discrimination scandal. Tech giant Morrison Technologies appoints veteran architect as CAO. Startup culture's ageism problem. The Nexus Solutions cautionary tale. Jerry refused to accept my resignation until I promised to still come in for coffee. Best networking I ever did, he joked, hiring an overqualified waitress. A week later, I sat in my new corner office at Morrison Technologies, reviewing resumes. Sarah, Marcus, and Dev had all jumped ship from Nexus, bringing their experience and loyalty with them. Experience, I was learning, had a way of attracting more experience. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex, his first contact since that day at the diner. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please consider consulting for us, name your price. I left him on read. On my desk, next to my dual monitors and ergonomic keyboard, sat Tom's photo from the Grand Canyon. I'd kept the frame but changed the picture to one taken a few days earlier, me in my new office, signing my contract as Chief Architecture Officer, James Morrison shaking my hand. The headline above the photo read, Morrison Technologies leads industry push for age diversity in tech. Sometimes being too old for one thing just means you're exactly right for something better. As for Alex and Nexus Solutions, last I heard, they were struggling to retain clients with their innovative young team. Turns out experience isn't just about adapting to change, it's about knowing which changes are worth making. Blake still hasn't figured out what a recursive function is, but that's not my problem anymore. I'm too busy leading architecture reviews, mentoring the next generation of engineers, and proving that in tech, as in life, wisdom doesn't have an expiration date. And every morning, I have my coffee at Jerry's Diner. After all, you never know who might walk through that door or what opportunities might arise from being exactly where you're meant to be, even if it's not where you expected to end up. The best revenge, I've learned, isn't about getting even, it's about getting ahead, bringing others with you, and changing the very system that tried to tell you were past your prime. As for being too old for this industry, well, as I told the panel at last week's Women in Tech conference, the only people too old for tech are the ones who think experience is a liability. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, not bad for someone who was wiping tables just a month ago. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of coffee refills, sandwich orders, and dirty dishes. My feet ached, my back protested, and my mind kept drifting back to my ergonomic office chair and dual monitors. But every time I started to feel sorry for myself, I remembered Alex's smirk. Too old for this industry. Maybe he was right. Maybe I was too old for tech, but I wasn't too old to work. It was during the late afternoon lull that everything changed. I was wiping down tables, trying to remember if I'd always had this many muscles that could hurt at once, when the bell above the door chimed. Be right with you, I called, not looking up from my task. Margaret? Margaret Winters? I froze, the cleaning cloth suddenly heavy in my hand. I knew that voice. Slowly, I turned around. James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Technologies, stood in the entrance of Jerry's Diner, looking at me with undisguised shock. The same James Morrison whose company was Nexus Solutions' biggest client. The same James Morrison who'd personally complimented my work on the Anderson project just last month. Mr. Morrison, I managed, acutely aware of my polyester uniform and sensible shoes. What are you? He glanced around the diner, comprehension dawning. Aren't you the genius behind the Anderson project? The integration architecture that saved us millions in deployment costs? Before I could respond, Jerry appeared from the kitchen. You know each other? James Morrison was still staring at me. Know her? This woman is one of the best software architects in San Francisco. What are you doing waiting tables, Margaret? I gripped my cleaning cloth tighter. Career change, I said lightly. Apparently I was too old for tech. Too old? Morrison's expression darkened. Who told you that? Alex Jensen, this morning, right before he fired me. The look that crossed Morrison's face was impossible to interpret. He pulled out his phone, checked something, then looked back at me. Do you have a minute to talk? He asked, privately. Jerry, who had been following this exchange with increasing interest, gestured to an empty booth in the corner. Take your break, Margaret, I'll cover your tables. As I slid into the booth across from James Morrison, still clutching my cleaning cloth like a shield, I had no idea that this conversation was about to change everything, not just for me, but for Alex Jensen and Nexus Solutions too. The next part of this story would prove that experience isn't just about years on a resume. Sometimes, it's about being in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, even if that place is wiping tables in a downtown diner. James Morrison studied me across the booth, his expression thoughtful. The late afternoon sun slanted through Jerry's windows, catching the silver in his hair he'd never felt the need to dye despite being in the same youth-obsessed industry. Tell me exactly what happened, he said quietly. So I did. The morning meeting, Alex's condescending smile, the accusations of being unable to adapt. As I spoke, Morrison's face darkened. The Anderson project, he interrupted. Who's handling it now? Blake Thompson, I said. He's 26. Very current. Morrison's laugh was sharp. The kid who asked if our legacy systems could be replaced with NFTs? I managed a small smile. That's the one. Margaret. Morrison leaned forward, his voice intense. Do you know why I came to this diner today? I shook my head. I was on my way to Nexus Solutions to terminate our contract. The latest updates to the Anderson project are a mess. Response times have doubled. The integration points are failing. I've been trying to reach Alex all day. My heart sank. The Anderson project was my baby. I'd spent months fine-tuning its architecture, ensuring every component worked in perfect harmony. When did the problem start? I asked, already suspecting the answer. About a week ago, Morrison confirmed, right after Alex announced he was taking a more hands-on approach to project management. A week ago, when Alex had first started hinting that my methods were outdated, when he'd given Blake increasing access to the core systems. I see, I said quietly. Morrison pulled out his phone and tapped something. No, Margaret, I don't think you do. Look at this. He slid his phone across the table. On the screen was an email from Alex to Morrison Technologies Board of Directors, dated 3 days ago. I want to assure the board that the recent performance issues are being addressed. Our new team, led by myself and Blake Thompson, developed the Anderson project from the ground up. We understand its architecture intimately and are implementing cutting-edge solutions. He's taking credit for your work, Morrison said flatly, while simultaneously destroying it. I stared at the email, anger finally breaking through my professional composure. That's not just misleading, it's a lie. I have documentation proving I designed and implemented the core architecture. Every major component went through my team. I know, Morrison smiled. I kept copies of all our technical meetings, including the ones where you personally walked us through the architecture meetings Alex didn't even attend. He took his phone back and made another call. Janet, move my 4 p.m. to tomorrow, and get me Richard Chen from legal. Yes, it's about Nexus. No, it can't wait. You're just not keeping up with the pace anymore, Margaret, Alex said, leaning back in his ergonomic chair, a practiced look of concern on his face. The tech industry moves fast. We need people who can adapt quickly, bring fresh perspectives. I sat across from him in the glass-walled office, my hands folded carefully in my lap to hide their trembling. At 58, I'd spent the last 12 years of my life at Nexus Solutions, building their software architecture from the ground up. Now my 34-year-old boss, who'd been with the company barely 18 months, was telling me I couldn't adapt. The Anderson project exceeded all delivery metrics last quarter, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. Client satisfaction was at 98%. Alex waved his hand dismissively. Ancient history. We're moving towards more innovative solutions now. AI integration, blockchain architecture. To be frank, Margaret, your methods are outdated. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been researching AI applications in software architecture since before Alex had graduated college. The blockchain integration proposal he was so proud of? I'd written the initial framework 3 months ago. I understand, I said, though I didn't. Not really. What's the timeline for this transition? Alex's practiced concern slipped slightly, revealing a flash of satisfaction. Immediate effect. HR has your severance package ready, 3 months salary, standard NDA. Blake will take over your current projects. Blake, the 26-year-old who spent more time on TikTok than actually coding, the one who'd had to ask me last week what a recursive function was. I see. I kept my voice neutral, even as my stomach churned. And my team? They'll report to Blake now. We need to streamline our management structure anyway. He glanced at his Apple Watch. HR is waiting. They'll help you clear out your desk. As if on cue, Melissa from HR appeared at the office door, carrying a cardboard box. Young, efficient Melissa, who'd once asked me to explain the difference between Java and JavaScript. I stood up slowly, my knees protesting slightly. Age wasn't just a number, I had to admit, but it wasn't a disability either. Thank you for the opportunity, I said, falling back on decades of professional courtesy. Alex was already looking at his phone, dismissing me from his attention just as he'd dismissed me from my career. The walk of shame through the open office space was mercifully brief. Most of my team was in their morning stand-up meeting, a practice I'd instituted 4 years ago. Through the conference room glass, I caught a glimpse of Sarah, my lead developer, her eyes widening as she saw me with the box and Melissa in tow. At my desk, I methodically packed my personal items. The photo of my late husband Tom, taken at the Grand Canyon 5 years ago. The small jade plant I'd kept alive despite the aggressive office air conditioning. A coffee mug my daughter had given me, emblazoned with "World's Best Code Mother." You'll need to turn in your keycard and laptop, Melissa said, her voice professionally sympathetic. And sign these. She placed a stack of papers on my desk. Severance agreement, non-disclosure, non-compete. I signed them all without reading. What did it matter? At 58, who would hire me anyway? Your personal items from the server will be transferred to a secure drive and sent to your email, Melissa continued. Once you've verified receipt, your access will be terminated. My personal items, 12 years of documentation, code snippets, architecture diagrams, all technically company property now. I nodded mutely. The security guard who escorted me to the lobby was new. He couldn't have known that I'd helped design the very security system he used to disable my access, that I'd chosen the elegant brass fixtures in the lobby during the office renovation 3 years ago, that the comfortable leather seats by the reception desk were my suggestion because I believed waiting visitors deserved better than molded plastic chairs. Outside, the San Francisco fog was rolling in, a gray blanket dropping over the financial district. I stood on the sidewalk, clutching my cardboard box, suddenly uncertain what to do next. It was only 10:30 a.m., too early to go home and stare at the walls of my empty apartment. My phone buzzed, Sarah calling. I let it go to voicemail, then Marcus from my team, then Dev. Good people, all of them, but I couldn't talk to them right now, couldn't hear their sympathy or their outrage, couldn't admit that Alex was right about one thing: I was too old for this industry, too old to start over. I started walking, no destination in mind. My comfortable flats, chosen for long days of standing at white boards rather than fashion, carried me past gleaming office buildings where other technology companies hummed with activity, places I might once have applied to work, places that now would see only my age, not my experience. 3 blocks later, I found myself outside Jerry's Diner, a modest establishment wedged between a boutique yoga studio and an artisanal coffee shop. The hand-painted sign in the window caught my eye: experienced server wanted, immediate start. Experienced. The word hit differently now. In tech, experience was a liability, but maybe here. The bell above the door chimed as I entered, still clutching my cardboard box of corporate memories. The diner was half full with late breakfast customers, the air rich with the smell of coffee and bacon. "Help you?" A man in his 60s, presumably Jerry, called from behind the counter. I glanced down at my business casual outfit: charcoal slacks, navy blazer, sensible shoes. Not exactly waitress attire, but what did I have to lose? "I saw your sign," I said, approaching the counter, "about needing an experienced server." Jerry looked me up and down, taking in the cardboard box, the office clothes, the barely concealed desperation in my eyes. "Got any restaurant experience?" "I worked as a waitress through college," I admitted, 35 years ago. To my surprise, Jerry grinned. "Good, you know what real work feels like then. When can you start?" I glanced at my watch, the expensive Apple Watch Alex had mocked as being wasted on me because I only used it to tell time. Right now? And that's how I found myself in the bathroom of Jerry's Diner, changing into a spare uniform he kept on hand. The polyester pants were a little short, the white shirt a little tight across the shoulders, but they'd do. I stored my cardboard box of corporate memories in Jerry's office, carefully placing Tom's photo on a dusty shelf. "The register's old school," Jerry warned as he showed me around. "No fancy touchscreen." I smiled for the first time that day. I can handle it. After all, I'd written point-of-sale software systems more complicated than this.